My personal trainer said he was gay and did this while I was training. I never thought a confession at the gym would change the way I looked at myself, or at someone I thought I knew so well. It began on an ordinary evening. Sweat dripping, music pounding. My body pushed to its limits under his watch. He had always been the voice pushing me harder, the presence that made me believe I could do more. But that night, he stopped me mid-set, his eyes holding something I had never seen before. Fear, mixed with strange kind of hope. He told me he was gay, and for a moment the world tilted. What happened in the minutes that followed was not just about training or friendship or even attraction. It was about vulnerability, about two people standing too close to truths neither of us knew how to handle. And it led to a chain of moments I can never forget and a heartbreak I never saw coming. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. That way, we can keep sharing stories that dive into emotions, connections, and the complicated choices that shape who we are. This is not just a story about love. It's about trust, about what happens when desire collides with fear, and about the cost of letting someone get too close. Stay with me, because by the end you'll understand why sometimes even the strongest connections can end in silence, leaving only the ache of what could have been. The gym smelled like rubber mats, chalk, and determination. I'd been coming here for months, dragging myself through routines that felt endless, but always with one reason to keep going. Ethan, my personal trainer. Tall, broad shoulders, calm voice that carried enough weight to silence the chaos of clanging iron. He wasn't just shaping my body. He was shaping the way I saw myself. And maybe, though I never admitted it, I came back as much for him as for the workouts. That evening began like any other. The late sun spilled through the high windows, painting the room in streaks of orange and gold. The music thudded low, the kind of bass that made your ribs tremble. Ethan was already waiting when I arrived, clipboard in hand, a water bottle tucked under his arm. "You're late," he said, not harshly but with that grin that always made my stomach twist. Traffic. I lied. Truth was, I had stood outside for 5 minutes trying to calm my nerves before seeing him. He shook his head. "Warm up. We're pushing legs today." I obeyed, though my mind wasn't on squats or lunges. It was on him. The way his black shirt clung to muscles earned through years of discipline, the way sweat darkened the collar, the way his eyes caught mine longer than necessary. I tried to ignore the pull, but every rep burned less than the tension I carried. Halfway through the workout, something shifted. He stopped me mid-rep, his hand brushing my shoulder. It lingered, maybe too long. "Take a break," he said quietly. His voice was different, softer, like the air had thickened around us. I sat, gulping water, my pulse hammering not from exercise but from something else. Ethan set the weights back and leaned against the rack, his eyes searching mine. I'd never seen him hesitate before. He was always steady, precise. But now, his jaw tightened like he was fighting a storm inside. "I need to tell you something," he said. His tone wasn't casual. It was heavy, personal. I blinked. "What's going on?" He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I'm gay." The words landed between us like a dropped barbell, loud in their silence. My heart lurched, though I couldn't explain why. Part of me had suspected, in the long glances, in the way he seemed to hold back from everyone, but never from me. But hearing out loud, it shook me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. The gym noises, the music, the clang of weights faded. All I heard was my own heartbeat. He laughed nervously. "You didn't expect that, huh?" "No," I admitted, my voice thin. "But thank you for telling me." His eyes softened. "I've been carrying it for a long time. I don't tell clients. I don't tell many people. But I couldn't keep training you without saying it. I needed you to know who I really am. I should have said something supportive, something simple, but my chest was too tight. Because beneath the shock, there was a flicker of something dangerous. Relief. Relief that the pull I felt toward him wasn't just one-sided imagination. Relief that maybe, just maybe, there was a reason he lingered near me longer than with others. I tried to cover it. "You trusted me with that." I said, "Why me?" He paused, then leaned closer, his voice dropping. Because when I'm around you, it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like more. My breath caught. The room tilted. Every sound blurred except his words. More. He meant something. He had to. Before I could respond, he placed his hand on my wrist. A firm, grounding touch. Not professional. Not neutral. His thumb brushed my skin, as if testing whether I would pull away. I didn't. Instead, I stared at him, my heart roaring louder than any music. 1,000 questions crashed in my mind. Was this real? Was I ready? What would happen if we crossed this line? He pulled his hand back slowly, eyes darting to floor. Sorry, he muttered. That was... I shook my head. Don't apologize. My voice surprised me, stronger than I felt inside. For a long moment, we just stood there, the gym fading around us. Two men caught between the rhythm of barbells and the rhythm of something far more dangerous. Then, as if the universe wanted to break the spell, another trainer called Ethan's name across the room. He straightened instantly, the mask sliding back over his face. Back to work, he said briskly, though his eyes betrayed him. But the moment lingered, thrumming between us like a pulse that wouldn't stop. That night, I left the gym shaking, my body sore from training, but my soul sore from something deeper. His words, his touch, his confession, it all played on repeat. And as I lay awake later, staring at the ceiling, one truth kept circling my mind. Nothing between us would ever be the same again. The next morning, the gym felt different. The same clang of weights, the same stale air and faint smell of protein shakes lingered, but all seemed heavier now. My body wanted to go through the motions, but my mind kept circling back to last night, his hand on my wrist, the low, steady way it said it. Because when I'm around you, it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like more. When I walked through the glass doors, I found him already there, leaning on the counter with a clipboard, greeting another client with his usual calm professionalism. He caught sight of me, and for the briefest second, something flickered in his eyes. Guilt? Relief? Maybe even hope. And the mask came back down. Ready for upper body today? He asked, his voice clip controlled. I nodded too quickly. Yeah, sure. We started the warm-up, but everything between us hummed with an unspoken tension. He stood closer than usual, adjusting my posture, his fingers pressing into my shoulders. Normally, he corrected me with quick, efficient touches. Professional. But today, every contact seemed to linger, as though he was daring me to notice. I noticed. Every nerve in me noticed. At one point, he knelt by my side as I pushed through a heavy bench press, his hands hovering just beneath the bar. Breathe. I've got you, he said, his voice low, almost tender. The way his eyes locked on mine made me forget the weight on my chest. I felt pinned not by iron, but by him. When the set ended, I sat up, gasping for air that wasn't just from exertion. He handed me water, our fingers brushing. A small shock ran through me. He felt it too. I could tell by the way his hand lingered for a fraction of a second too long. Ethan, I began, my throat dry. He looked at me, waiting. I keep thinking about what you told me yesterday. His jaw tightened. I shouldn't have said it. You should have. I countered quickly, surprised at myself. Because I can't stop thinking about it. Silence stretched between us. He looked down, tracing a line on his clipboard with his pen. This is dangerous, he muttered. Why? Because if I'm wrong about you, he looked up, eyes dark with something that scared me as much as it drew me closer. I lose more than a client. I lose you. The honesty in his words hit me hard. My chest burned with questions I didn't know how to ask. Did he want me the way I wanted him? Or was I reading too much into every glance, every touch? Before I could respond, another trainer interrupted, needing Ethan's help with a machine that jammed. He excused himself, leaving me on the bench, my pulse racing. When he returned, we tried to act normal. Reps, sets, corrections. But normal had left us the night before. Halfway through the workout, a moment slipped past our defenses. I was struggling with pull-ups, sweat burning my eyes, my arms giving out. He stepped behind me, his chest brushing my back, his hands lightly at my sides as if to steady me. Don't quit, he whispered. His breath was warm against my ear. Something inside me cracked open. I dropped from the bar, turned to face him, too close, closer than we'd ever stood. Neither of us moved away. His eyes searched mine, and for a moment, the gym fell away, the music, the people, the noise. It was just us. Ethan, I said, my voice rough, tell me if I'm imagining this. His lips parted, but no words came. Instead, he stepped back abruptly, shaking his head. We should finish for today. The sudden distance cut sharper than rejection. My chest tightened. Why are you pulling away? Because I don't want to ruin what this is, he said, his tone uneven. And because I don't trust myself around you. I didn't know what to say. My mind spun between wanting to reach for him and wanting to protect myself from the ache of uncertainty. He gathered the weights, his hand shaking slightly though he tried to hide it. Same time tomorrow, he asked, as though nothing had happened. I forced a nod. Yeah, tomorrow. But as I left the gym, my reflection caught in the glass doors. I realized nothing about tomorrow would be simple. We had crossed a line we couldn't erase, and neither of us knew how to live with it. That night, lying in bed, I replayed every second. His touch on my back, his breath at my ear, the words he didn't say when I asked if I was imagining it. My heart wanted answers. My mind feared them. One truth pulsed beneath it all. Ethan was holding something back. And I didn't know if I was strong enough to wait forever to find out what it was. When I woke up the next morning, my body ached from the workout. But it wasn't just my muscles that felt heavy. It was my chest. Every breath carried the weight of Ethan's silence, of the words he hadn't said when I asked if I was imagining everything. I spent most of the morning pacing around my apartment, pretending to do normal things, making coffee, checking emails, folding laundry, but my mind refused to stay anywhere else but on him. By noon, I gave up trying to distract myself. I packed my gym bag early, leaving hours before my scheduled session, just to escape the suffocating thoughts. When I walked into the gym, Ethan was already there, spotting another client on the squat rack. His voice was steady, his corrections precise. To anyone watching, he was the same professional trainer they always knew. But when his eyes flicked to mine across the room, I felt the tension snap like a wire. For just a second, the mask slipped. Something raw glimmered there before he looked away. I stretched in silence, watching him, every nerve coiled with anticipation. When he finally came over, clipboard in hand, I noticed his knuckles were white from gripping it too tightly. Today we'll work on conditioning, he said briskly, as if nothing had happened yesterday. I nodded, trying to match his tone, though my heart pounded. Sure, conditioning. The first half of the workout passed in a blur. Push-ups, lunges, medicine ball slams. He barked corrections, counted reps, never once letting his gaze linger. It was professional to the point of cold. And yet, beneath it, I felt the heat of what he was holding back. Halfway through, he had me on the treadmill. 10 minutes at full incline, he ordered. I groaned but obeyed, my legs burning. He stood at my side, arms crossed, his presence as close and suffocating as ever. I stared straight ahead, the humming machine filling the silence. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore. Are we going to talk about it? I asked, breathless from the run. Talk about what? His tone was clipped defensive. You know what? I pressed yesterday. Everything. The treadmill beeped as the minutes dragged, but the only sound I heard was the thud of my own heartbeat. Ethan sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I told you, it was a mistake. No, it wasn't. I slowed the treadmill down and stepped off, standing in front of him, sweat dripping from my face. It wasn't a mistake. You don't look at me the way you look at anyone else here. His jaw clenched. You're imagining things. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Am I? Because when you touched me yesterday, it didn't feel like nothing. His eyes flashed, torn between anger and longing. For a moment, I thought he might walk away. Instead, he leaned in slightly, his voice rough. You don't understand what you're asking for. Then explain it to me. He looked around. The gym was full, people laughing, machines clanging, no one noticing the storm brewing between us. He shook his head, stepping back. Not here. The rest of the session passed in silence. He gave me instructions. I followed them, but every move was mechanical, fueled by something deeper gnawing at both of us. When the clock finally hit the end of the hour, he handed me a towel, his hand brushing mine. This time, he didn't pull away. He leaned closer, his voice barely audible. Meet me outside after closing, if you really want answers. My heart stuttered. I'll be there. The gym was quiet at night, the music off, machines standing like hulking shadows. I waited in the parking lot, leaning against my car, the cool air brushing sweat from my skin. When Ethan finally walked out, locking the doors behind him, his shoulders seemed heavier than I had ever seen. Come on, he said quietly, nodding toward his car. We drove in silence to a small park on the edge of the city. Streetlights flickered, and the air carried the faint smell of grass and asphalt. We sat on a bench, the weight of everything pressing between us. He finally broke the silence. I didn't plan on telling you, but I couldn't keep training you and pretending. He rubbed his hands together, staring at the ground. I've been alone a long time. I built walls because it's safer that way. And then you came along. I swallowed hard. And you made me want something I promised myself I'd never want again. The admission hit me like a punch. Why not? Why can't you? He looked at me then, eyes dark with pain. Because the last time I let myself want someone, it destroyed me. He left without a word. I told myself I'd never risk it again. I reached for his hand, hesitating before finally closing the gap. I'm not him. His fingers twitched beneath mine, as if fighting the instinct to hold on. Then, slowly, he gripped back. The world seemed to narrow to that one touch. You scare me, he whispered. Why? Because you make me feel like I could fall again, and I don't know if I could survive it twice. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, I leaned closer. Then maybe we don't have to survive it. Maybe we just live it. For the first time, he didn't pull away. He let the words settle, his breathing uneven. His eyes softened, his face so close I could feel the warmth of him. It was as if the whole world had been leading to this moment. But just as the distance between us shrank, headlights swept across the park. A car screeched to a stop nearby. Laughter spilling out as a group of strangers stumbled from it, loud and careless. The spell broke instantly. Ethan jerked back, his hand slipping from mine. He stood abruptly, his walls slamming back into place. This was a mistake. My heart twisted. Don't do this. He shook his head, already walking away. You don't know what you're asking for. I sat frozen on the bench, the taste of almost lingering bitter in my mouth. The night around me seemed suddenly colder, crueler. I didn't see Ethan for 3 days. 3 long days of silence that clung to me like sweat after a workout. Every time I walked into the gym, I half expected him to walk up behind me, clipboard in hand, pretending nothing had happened. But he wasn't there. Another trainer covered my sessions, offering polite corrections and empty smiles. None of it mattered. The gym felt hollow without him. By the 4th day, I couldn't take it anymore. I texted him. We need to talk. No answer. Hours passed. Then, late that night, his reply came. Meet me tomorrow. Not at the gym. The next evening, I found myself standing outside a small cafe near the edge of town. It was quiet, dimly lit, the kind of place people came to when they didn't want to be found. Ethan was already there, sitting by the window. When he looked up, I could see the exhaustion written in his face. He looked like a man who hadn't slept, who'd wrestled with himself and lost. I slid into the seat across from him. For a while, neither of us spoke. The hum of the espresso machine filled the silence, the low chatter of strangers floating around us. Finally, he exhaled. I shouldn't have brought you into this, he said, his voice low. You deserve something simple. Not this. I clenched my jaw. You don't get to decide what I deserve. You confessed to me, Ethan. You told me who you are, and then you pulled away. You can't expect me to just forget it. He rubbed his temples. You don't understand. People talk. Clients gossip. If anyone sees us, let them... I cut in. My voice was sharper than I expected. Why are you so afraid of being honest about what you want? His eyes flicked up, pain flickering there. Because the last time I was honest, it nearly destroyed me. I gave everything to someone, and when he left, I had to rebuild my life from ashes. The gym became my shield. It's the only place I can be strong. If I let you inside that shield and lose you too, he shook his head, I don't know if I'd survive. I leaned forward, my hands pressed to the table. I'm not him. I'm right here. I want this. Don't you? His lips parted, his silence the only answer. And then the cafe door slammed open. A group of men entered, loud, laughing too hard. One of them spotted Ethan immediately. Hey, coach, he called, his tone sharp, mocking. Didn't know you came here. Who's your friend? Ethan froze. I felt his whole body stiffen. He muttered under his breath, Not now. The men dragged chairs to a nearby table, glancing over at us with smirks that carried more weight than words. The air thickened. Ethan dropped his eyes to his coffee. I frowned. Do you know them? He nodded faintly. Clients. Ex-clients. The type who think training gives them permission to pry. One of the men called again. Coach, you training him privately too? Looks like you keep your favorites close, huh? Their laughter rang out, cutting through me. I looked back at Ethan, expecting him to snap, to shut them down. But he didn't. He just sat there, shrinking into himself. Something inside me cracked. You're going to let them talk to you like that? I demanded. He whispered, Please, don't. I stood anyway. Hey, I said, turning toward their table. My voice trembled, but I pushed forward. Leave him alone. The laughter died. The biggest of them leaned back, smirking. Relax. We're just joking. It's not funny, I snapped. The man's smirk twisted. What are you, his boyfriend? The word hung in the air like a punch. Ethan flinched as though struck. My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to say yes. But Ethan's eyes begged me not to. His fear was louder than my anger. I swallowed hard, lowering my gaze. Just show some respect, I muttered, sitting back down. The men laughed again, quieter this time, but the damage was done. Ethan's hands shook as he held his coffee cup. He wouldn't look at me. When they finally left, the silence between us was unbearable. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him none of this mattered, that I wasn't ashamed. But his face was pale, his eyes hollow. This is what I meant, he said softly. This is why I can't do this with you. Because the moment anyone sees, they turn it into a weapon, and I can't go through that again. His words gutted me. So you'd rather throw away what's here? Pretend it doesn't exist? He finally looked at me, his voice breaking. I'd rather lose you now than lose myself later. The words hung in the air, heavier than anything I'd ever lifted in the gym. My throat closed. I wanted to argue, to scream, to tell him he was wrong. But the pain in his voice was too raw. We sat in silence until the cafe lights dimmed, signaling closing time. He stood, leaving money on the table. Don't follow me, he whispered. And then he walked out. I sat there long after, staring at the empty chair across from me. My chest ached, my hands trembling. For the first time, I realized this wasn't just a crush, wasn't just a fleeting desire. It was something deeper, something that had already wrapped itself around me. And now it was slipping away. I hadn't seen Ethan in over a week. The gym felt like a place stripped of its soul. I went through the motions with other trainers, but every time I caught a glimpse of the squat rack or the bench press, I saw him there, his hand steadying mine, his voice whispering, I've got you. I thought the silence would kill me, but then one evening, as I was packing up to leave, I heard my name, his voice, low, hesitant. I turned. There he was, leaning against the wall near the back exit, arms crossed, his eyes tired but fixed on me. Can we talk? He asked. I nodded, my chest tight. We walked out into the cool night. The parking lot was empty, the street lamps humming softly. He shoved his hands into his pockets, avoiding my gaze. I shouldn't have left things the way I did, he began. You deserve more than silence. I swallowed hard. So what is it, Ethan? Do you want me, or do you want the safety of staying behind those walls forever? He finally looked at me, and for once his eyes were stripped bare. No defenses, no masks, just pain and longing. I want you, he admitted, his voice cracking. But wanting you terrifies me. The words unraveled something inside me. I stepped closer, closing the gap until we were only inches apart. Then stop running. For once, stop running. His breath hitched. For a moment, the world fell away. The buzzing lights, the empty cars, the weight of fear. He reached up, his hand trembling, and brushed his fingers against my jaw. The touch was tender, desperate, filled with everything he hadn't said. And then he kissed me. It wasn't rushed, wasn't hesitant. It was everything we had been holding back, crashing into one moment. My heart roared. My knees nearly buckled. His hands gripped me like he was afraid I'd disappear, and I clung to him with the same fear. When we finally pulled apart, both of us gasping, his forehead rested against mine. God, I tried so hard to stop this, he whispered. But I can't. I smiled through tears. Then don't. For a few minutes, we just stood there, wrapped in a fragile bubble of honesty and heat. For the first time, I believed we could have something real, something worth breaking the walls for. But reality doesn't wait forever. A voice shattered the moment. Ethan. We both froze. One of the gym's senior managers stood at the doorway, arms crossed, eyes wide. The look on his face said everything: shock, judgment, calculation. Ethan stepped back instantly, panic flooding his features. It's not, he began, but the manager was already turning away. The next morning, Ethan didn't show up at the gym. By noon, word had spread, rumors whispered, questions asked. I knew what had happened before anyone told me. Ethan had resigned. I tried calling him. No answer. Texts went unread. Days turned to weeks, and he was gone, vanished as if he'd been a ghost. I kept training, but it wasn't the same. Every rep was heavy without him. Every weight an echo of his voice. Sometimes I imagined him behind me, saying, "Bree, I've got you." But when I turned, there was only empty air. One evening, after a brutal session, I sat alone on the locker room bench, staring at the floor. That's when I realized the truth. Ethan hadn't just been my trainer. He had been the first person to make me see myself differently, to force me to face what I wanted, what I was capable of feeling. He had opened a door I could never close again. And though our story ended with silence, though fear and shame pulled him away, I couldn't regret a single second, because in his eyes, in his touch, in that kiss under the streetlight, I had felt something I had never felt before, something real. I walked out of the gym that night into the cool air, lifting my face to the sky. The ache in my chest was sharp, but beneath it was a quiet strength. Ethan was gone, but the courage he had stirred in me remained. I had loved and I had lost, but I had also discovered myself. Sometimes the people who enter our lives don't stay forever. Sometimes fear wins. But even in heartbreak, there is a gift, the chance to know ourselves more deeply, to grow braver, to see that love, even unfinished, can change us. If this story touched you, ask yourself, what fear are you still letting control your life? And what might happen if, just once, you chose to face it? If this story moved you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share with someone who needs to hear that even love that ends in silence can still leave behind a spark strong enough to light the rest of your journey.